Hey guys, I'm Tim, and welcome to the Mr. Maple Show.
Konnichiwa, y'all. It's Matt.
What's up, guys? I'm Corbin.
Today we're going to be taking you on a little tour of the Nitobe Japanese Gardens. Now, this is part of the University of British Columbia. We got to tour these with Douglas Justice as part of the Maple Society.
Yeah, I really like this Nitobe garden because it used elements of traditional Japanese gardening, but also plants from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, this is my first time being in a more traditional Japanese garden, and I was kind of blown away. I love the trees and how everything was set up in a way where it's kind of gives you room to think.
Now, being from the United States here, we often think of Canada as being a very cold place, but where this is at, it actually gets some really nice temperate climates here in Canada in the UBC. They can grow a lot of plants that are like zone 7, zone 8 plants because they are so warm in the specific climate.
Beautiful area. It was very relaxing. It's hard to get into these moss kind of gardens and not just have a sense of relaxation.
I mean, this is more of a serenity garden. I mean, at one point I saw Corbin sitting down at the pond, just staring, contemplating in the pond. And that's what this garden's meant to be. It's meant to be a garden where you think, where you're calm, where you're very quiet. And that was one of the things they stressed about this garden is don't be loud. This is a serenity garden. Take it really softly and enjoy and contemplate.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. There's some older Japanese maples. There were a lot of azaleas in this garden. It's laid out more in a traditional style, but, Douglas Justice really reiterated. He's like, well, what's the meaning behind this or what's the meaning behind that? He's like, there's not a meaning behind every rock. The point is the garden relaxes you. The point is the garden is part of nature and you're enjoying it. And so everything doesn't have this, Western meaning to us every time. It's just enjoy it. There are a lot of great Japanese maples in this garden, mostly Acer palmatum subspecies palmatum, so some large leaf greens. Saw some fall color starting here. You can see across the pond there's some different splashes of color peeking out as well. There were a lot of different elements here though, but like Tim captured on for a second, I like they had a lot of Pacific Northwest plants as well. There were a lot of Acer circinatum mixed in, kind of blending that little piece of Canada and that little piece of the Pacific Northwest with the Japanese style.
I mean, I love these reflection ponds where you can see the reflection of the trees in fall color. When they're in fall color, you see that reflection even more. And just being able to go up through there and look up through the trees and see their silhouettes, it's just one of those things that just calms you and relaxes you and gets you in that peaceful mindset.
Definitely reminds me of some gardens I've been to in Kyoto. I forgot I was in Canada for a little bit right now.
Again, these pathways over the water, they just add that extra element. We can actually walk up, walk over, and see and look directly into the pond itself. And they're always often flanked by large Japanese maples. I mean, right around that pathway, you'll see a Japanese maple. It's like, almost like a reoccurring theme I see often in when they're doing this traditional style of Japanese gardening. One thing I thought was really interesting, and I'm not so sure if we captured it on camera, but seedlings from the Japanese maples, instead of just them being weeds, they replanted many of them along the waterway, and they would plant them arched out over the water so that those seedlings would then become larger trees down the road. And they were born here in this garden, which is unusual because many gardens would then just pull those up, throw them away, and try to replace them with a larger tree. Instead, they took those trees that were from this garden, planted them back in this garden around the water's edge. And that's what Matt and I saw in Japan, was that's where often many of the Japanese maples were growing, were at the water's edge, jetted out over the waterways.
I love a good path in a garden. It really guides you along. It really sets the parameters for the garden. It edges things out. It gives you the areas where to look. And it also, kind of just gives you a path to take around this garden too. It's really nice.
I also think that the moss adds so much to a traditional Japanese garden. I mean, you see this as a prominent feature often, and I like it because it gives color, but it doesn't take away from the plants that are planted there. It doesn't give a lot of height. And so it just gives this natural serenity that just grabs your attention. And it puts more focus on many of the Japanese maples and the pathways that are in the garden.
A lot of these Acer palmatums up here are 40, 50 feet tall. There's some mature specimens in there.
Yeah, I love the layout of the garden. There was a lot of elevation changes in some areas, and then obviously the bridges were pretty amazing. There was a little area where I think they were growing irises. That was kind of a wetlands that the water had kind of receded back, and it was just really interesting time to catch this garden, I feel like.
Now, this entire garden is walled off, so there are walls around every aspect of this garden, making it even feel more private and secluded. You're not out in the landscape. It's very much on the campus. So you get outside of here, there's classrooms, there's parking garages, there's things like that. But you get in here and you're in this element completely to itself.
This is so cool that this is on a university's campus. I mean, I went to the UNC Chapel Hill and we had a garden, but nothing like this. We did not have any Japanese traditional garden like this that was just so peaceful. I mean, you imagine studying for exams and just be like, I need a break. And just go out here and just sit down and relax for a little bit. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I know I could have used that during my time in college as well. This place, I think so far what I've experienced with Japanese gardens is they kind of take you to another place. This kind of just reminded me of whenever I went to the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, and you go in there and all of the sound of the city kind of fades away, and the only thing that kind of brings you back is the passing of airplanes over the top of the garden. And I think that this garden also captures that. I mean, it really just does take you to a different place.
And here you see some of those seedlings that they've planted jetting out over the waterway like I was talking about. I mean, so cool. So many awesome ways you can enjoy this traditional Japanese garden. I mean, there's some larger leaf Japanese maples here. There's so many places just to sit and relax.
I remember another thing that Douglas told us. They had brought a bunch of other people in to kind of look and redesign the garden a little bit. And I remember they had brought a non-Japanese person in to kind of revamp the garden. And I think I remember something about him messing up, and the Japanese government did not contact UBC for like 11 years after that. And then they brought a Japanese guy back in. He kind of moved some stuff around and fixed it. And then immediately after that, they kind of started talking to him again. So I thought that was an interesting story.
It's crazy how one garden can sort of be like the middle ground for two countries.
That water feature was awesome, though. Really, really just big open spaces. Definitely has that Kyoto-like feel.
I just liked it because you could see the waterway from so many places in the garden. You could see that reflection pond. I mean, everywhere you went, there was a little pathway, but then you see the reflection pond. There's a little pathway, then you see the reflection pond. So it keeps bringing you back to that calm and relaxing feel that pond provides. One thing you'll notice is behind a lot of the benches, there are often shrubs like azaleas and things planted really close nearby. And that's because the bench is supposed to be part of the garden, not in the garden. And it just, when you sit down there, you get this feeling like you're part of the garden itself. It's just more calming and relaxing. I like these pathways that are not straight. There's almost like three little individual bridges together to make that one bridge.
I think that's something that I enjoy about Japanese gardens as well, is everything is so meticulous and intentional, but then it comes out feeling very natural, a place where you can contemplate and enjoy the nature around you.
I even love the entranceway and the exitway to this. It was a really cool little area. There were some large trees in fall color, but it just had a lot going on.
And here we're walking underneath Douglas firs, some giant Douglas firs, which are just everywhere in the Pacific Northwest, with circinatums planted all around as well. It's so cool that they just blended these two cultures together. I really like that little island out there. I mean, you've got your pond, you've got your reflection pond, but then they put an island out there so you can actually go out and be like a part of the pond too. just an extra added feature I thought was really cool.
I wonder if they have koi in this garden during the spring. I know a lot of places like this will take them away for the winter, store them somewhere else, but it felt like a great garden for some koi to be in. Really nice, relaxing area, and like again, it just gets so still and quiet, even with a big crowd of people in this area. It very much got kind of calm and relaxed.
And I think another cool part about this place was the fact that they kind of held traditional Japanese tea ceremonies there. And we didn't go inside the tea house, but we were kind of looking at it. And Douglas Justice kind of talked about what that's used for. You know, whenever they have people from Japan come over, they'll host a traditional tea ceremony as like a welcoming party. And I think that was so awesome, is like you see in the design of the garden, the fact that they're using both Japanese trees and also Pacific Northwest trees. And I think Douglas Justice described this garden as a handshake from Canada to Japan, and that this was just a little slice of Japan in Canada.
Yeah, it's a lovely analogy, and it's really nice. I really enjoyed this area. Could have went for some tea while I was there. That would have been nice.
Yeah, I think something that was interesting was I think that there is kind of a way that you were supposed to walk around. I think everybody was walking counterclockwise around it, and then after you kind of make your whole way up through the garden, you kind of round back to the tea house, and like naturally that's kind of where everybody gathered around, was in the little pagoda and tea house area, and I think that was very intentional. I like the history behind the Nitobe Gardens as well. It was named after Dr. Nitobe, who kind of worked on some relations between both countries up until World War II started taking place. I think before the war started, though, he had passed away. Japan had donated a big lantern in his honor, and slowly a garden started developing around this lantern. And then once World War II started, obviously tensions got a little bit high. You know, people were vandalizing and that sort of thing. But after the war ended, they came back, revamped the garden, and I mean, just made it beautiful. And it's an awesome place that has a really cool story involved with it. crazy how just watching this video kind of brings me back to the peace of mind that I had while we were at this garden. And I think that speaks to how well and designed the garden was. It even translates through video and kind of reignites that memory for me. This was an awesome place to walk around.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this tour of the Nitobe Japanese gardens.
Yeah, this garden is just one of those very unique gardens you'll always remember because it is so different than your traditional garden.
Yeah, I could sit here for hours. I kind of got lost just looking at the pond and, listening to Douglas talk, and I think it was a great time.
Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.